Nice badge.
Keep an eye on the elevator. I'm gonna go wait for forensics.
Okay. Let me know when they get here.
Excuse me.
Through the years, I've seen many of the smaller niche franchises I love start growing in popularity, but Vampire the Masquerade was the only one that didn't seem to catch any breaks. I, like many people, were exposed to VTM through their cult hit Bloodlines, and from there, my love for the world drove me to play the tabletop version. Still, for every single hit something like Warhammer would get, VTM would continue to stay in its own little corner despite fans begging for any company to give us something Bloodlines gave us many years ago. As a major fan of the franchise, I am happy to say with Vampire the Masquerade Swansong, we finally have our first real win in nearly 2 decades. Developed by Big Bad Wolf, Swansong is the company's sophomore release onto the video game market. Personally, I kept myself blind from the game because I have a habit of getting my hopes up a little too high for franchises I love. So at a glance, I thought Swansong was going to be very similar to a Telltale game or something that creep David Cage would make in his games such as Detroit Become Human or Heavy Rain. Instead, I was blown away to find out Swansong is actually more comparable to a Hitman game focusing on manipulation and story instead of assassination. And before we move on, yes, this is a spoiler-free review. Swansong places you in the role of 3 different vampires of 3 different clans. You have Amem the Toreador, Laisha the Malkavian, and Galeb the Ventrue. As you play the game, you will constantly swap between these characters and experience their own unique stories and their own unique character progressions as well. First thing to talk about is there are builds in the game, and each character comes with their own unique powers and skill sets. Amem, being a Toreador, is naturally gifted in the social aspects of the world, so you could build her as the social butterfly Toreadors are meant to be. But if you decide to build her as more of a hacker-focused character, she will still greatly benefit from that. Swansong's greatest strength isn't the freedom of building your character, but the fact that every single skill in the game is useful in nearly every single level. Through the game's careful attention to the skills, you'll never actually suffer because you decide to invest in a skill that is barely ever used. And yes, I'm looking at you, swimming skill from Deus Ex. However, the game will not give you enough experience points to be good at everything. And because of that, for every situation your character build succeeds in, there's always something they will fail in. This isn't a bad thing because now I can finally explain what I meant by this game being comparable to Hitman. The main progression of the game is level based, and in each level, one of the 3 characters is thrown into an open area to complete a goal. However, the environments in the game are filled with secrets and clues just waiting to be discovered. You will quickly learn there is a lot more going on in the level than the game leads on, and it's up to you to find out exactly what is hiding using your character build. If you created a more social build, there are many NPCs in the levels that can be manipulated to give up the secrets of the mission or environment. If you created a more tech-savvy build, there are tons of computers, locked doors, and hidden safes filled with useful information. And if you want to play an old-school detective, your investigation skills will lead you to clues hidden in plain sight. The best part of this incredibly flexible gameplay style is every single build will lead you to valuable info the other builds will not find. Yes, there are certain bits and pieces that can be found with any build, but let me tell you that I didn't invest into any tech skills, and because of that, I actually missed the answer to an entire mystery plot in the game. Again, I am very surprised with this game because I didn't expect it to share elements from the latest Hitman trilogy, which is a game I absolutely adore. Although this is still a story-focused game, and I gotta give the writers some props on how they handle dialogue choices. If you played a Telltale game or even Bloodlines, you'll feel right at home with Swansong. But something I gotta warn you is the use of skills in the game. Normally when you see a skill check in dialogue, you think, oh, if I win this, I get something useful. But in Swansong, that isn't always the case. In any given dialogue choice, you'll be given multiple responses, and some with skill checks. But what the game doesn't tell you is some skill checks are traps and can not only set you back from your goals, but waste valuable resources in the process. Willpower and hunger drive your abilities in the game, and they are incredibly valuable because they can be hard to earn back. Hunger powers your supernatural abilities, and between the two, it is the easiest to manage. To restore hunger, you have to find a safe zone to hunt humans, but there are a limited amount of safe zones in each level, and a limited amount of hunger you can restore from each human. Willpower, on the other hand, is the resource you spend to use your non-supernatural skills such as persuasion or investigation. However, this has a unique mechanic where if your skill level for a certain skill check is under the minimum amount, you can actually use willpower to raise your skill level and lock in a favorable percentage at the cost of using nearly twice or 3 times as much willpower than usual. Keep in mind that unlike hunger, willpower isn't so easy to replace and can only be gained by failing a ton of skill checks or by finding items that restore it, but from my experience, those items are actually pretty rare. This system is always a gamble because if you're using willpower against an NPC, they can actually use it in return and make that high percentage you just locked in go even lower. Because of this, any skill that isn't already starting off with winning odds becomes a huge risk to use, but in Swansong, there's so many hidden secrets around that it might be worth the gamble after all. Another great addition to the game is the Confrontation mechanic, where you will square off verbally against another character. In this system, there are stages and your goal is to make it to the final stage. The challenge is that each confrontation has a fail limit, and if you hit that limit, you will lose the confrontation automatically. Even then, what matters most is winning the final stage of the confrontation, because if you fail that, you again lose the confrontation. This is where I quickly learned that my skills do not mean automatic wins because each of these confrontations have definitive correct and incorrect choices. So you're constantly second guessing your choices. Story-wise, confrontations have some of the best moments in the game, with the final confrontation legit having me on the edge of my seat unsure what the correct answer could be. With all that being said, I think my greatest gripe with the game comes with the fact that I wasn't allowed to skip any dialogue. Like, at all. Hell, even the animations weren't skippable. See, dialogue I understand because the game actually doesn't give you any objective markers or detailed instructions. There are times where an NPC will give you a major clue or a plan, but it won't be pinned on any taskbar, which is honestly the reason why I liked Bloodlines so much because it just makes exploration that much more valuable. However, every time I drain someone for blood, I would like to just skip to the actual draining instead of watching the cutscene that leads up to it. Or after. Yeah, don't get me wrong, I really like Galeb's post-nut face, but I just want to play the game. Please, I just want to play the game. The animations are cool, but I really like the game. That was a lot of gameplay, so let's take a detour to the visuals and audio of the game. Swansong is a really good looking game with fun character designs, elaborate environmental design, and great use of lighting and shadows. For a studio who's just getting their name out there, Big Bad Wolf has done a great job in this department, but I have a major complaint. This might put people off, but the facial animations of the characters are seriously lacking and don't really match the performances the actors are giving. Here, take a look at this character's face and tell me if you really see any sort of emotional range on it. I don't want to rag on the devs for this too much because I'm slowly starting to realize this might be an issue with the engine itself. The game is built on the Unreal Engine, and I have reviewed recent games built on that engine that had the same exact problem. In fact, when I saw the facial animations in Swansong, I quickly remembered just how many games have been having that same problem recently. This is still a story-focused game, which means the plot and the acting are going to be the focus of the game, so having facial animations that are lacking definitely do not do the game any favors when everything else already looks great. Hell, not even just looking great, but the game runs great too. Playing on a pre-release PC build, I didn't have a single crash in my playtime, and I only had a small part of a level drop frames while everything else ran really smooth. If you're curious, I'm running a 2060 GPU with a Ryzen 5 CPU for all you Linus Tech Tip fanboys out there. Audio-wise, I don't envy any composer who has signed up for a VTM game because Bloodlines composer Rick Schaefer has easily left a giant mark on the franchise. However, I am happy to say the soundtrack is as grungy and moody as it needs to be to really set up that iconic World of Darkness atmosphere fans are looking for. Alongside music, the voice acting in the game is solid all around with a few blemishes here and there. The main 3 characters all give wonderful performances, with Galeb's voice actor completing the incredible feat of making me love a Ventrue character for once. No, seriously, I like the clan Ventrue, but they're all ridden with a 10-foot stick up their ass, but along comes Galeb, who not only does not have a stick up his ass, but shows very interesting depth in his beliefs and fears. You know what, fuck it, since we're discussing characters, let me just say, I am so happy with how the Malkavian Leisha is written. I've seen people fall into the trap of writing a Malkavian focused on a mental illness instead of writing a character with a mental illness. And I am so glad to see Leisha doesn't fall into that trap, but actually has one of the most interesting story arcs in the game. Hell, even a Mem starts off being the most straight-written Toreador I've seen, and slowly evolves to the one who has her morals and beliefs challenged the most. Wait, shit, I was supposed to be talking about audio, wasn't I? Well, it's too late now, let's talk about story. Vampire the Masquerade is known on the tabletop to focus more on the actual story and character development side of things compared to other tabletop RPGs. Because of this, I tend to hold VTM video games to a higher standard of world building and story than other games, and let me tell you, this did not disappoint. The story is straightforward at first. The Camarilla, who is a major vampire faction in the world, was attacked and took heavy casualties. Now on the defensive, they must find out who was behind the attack and how to stop it, which is where our main trio comes in. If you're familiar with the world of VTM, I will tell you right now, whatever theories you have a good chance of being right. But I will also tell you this game does right by the world of VTM by throwing in so many plot twists and deceptions, you will quickly realize it didn't matter if you caught on to something early. In my experience playing the game, I saw a plot twist coming miles away, and when it was finally revealed, I was like, yeah, no shit. But then the game had a plot twist for that plot twist that caught me off guard, and it didn't stop there. The game does not let up with the reveals and twists it throws at you, staying very true to what Vampire the Masquerade represents. If you're looking for a good story, I think I can say with confidence Swansong delivers, because usually with games that have an embargo, I'm on a time crunch to review them. So I don't usually have time to finish them because this isn't my actual job, I do this shit for fun. However, Swansong not only had me very invested in the story, but as a VTM fan, it displayed a very respectable knowledge of the world it is in, to the point where I had to finish the game because of the love and care that went into respecting the source material. I know we are all waiting for Bloodlines 2 to come out, and no, I cannot guarantee this game will fill you with the same magic that made you fall in love with the world like Bloodlines 1 did. But what I can say is that Swansong is what this franchise needed. Swansong doesn't need to be Bloodlines 2, but instead needs to be what shows the video game market what else the world of Vampire the Masquerade has to offer. By combining elements from games like Hitman, Telltale, and even Bloodlines 1, I think Swansong is not only a good VTM game, but just a fun game in general. Which I think is important because if you're a fan of VTM, the world and story alone can carry the game for you. But if you're just getting into the franchise for the first time, the open exploration and flexible gameplay can help motivate new players to learn more about the world. In the end, if you're a fan of Vampire the Masquerade, and like me, you love the world and want to explore more, I think Swansong has what you're looking for. And if you're new to the franchise but are a fan of games such as Hitman or Telltale, then I think Swansong is worth a look at for newcomers as well. Hopefully down the road, VTM can be explored more so I could finally have my favorite clan, the Hikata, star in their own game. No, seriously, tell me the idea of a Mafia vampire game wouldn't be dope as fuck. Anyways, I'm Chris from Genuine Chill. If you liked the video, you should like the video and subscribe for more reviews because as I said earlier, this ain't my job, but shit, I wouldn't mind. Also, a huge thank you to Nakan for the review code. I'm gonna go see if I can use my Dominate discipline on Jason Carl to make my original character canon in Vampire the Masquerade. Actually, you know what? Instead of saying goodbye, I'm gonna add another 35 minutes to this video explaining my favorite original vampire. Okay, so she's a Toreador named Darling who is the sheriff of San Antonio who has the organ of war flaws, so she likes to carry around cannibal smoothies to slake her hunger, and then she likes to